Thank you, everybody. You have to excuse me if I kind of wander around a little bit while I'm talking. I used to be a school teacher, and you learn very quickly, don't stand still in front of a whiteboard, you're just an easier target. So I'm probably going to wander a bit, because if I stand still, I lose the power of speech, I've been told. This is what I want to talk about today, really. The need to plan strategically for the future, and I want to talk about exactly what that means and what I think it needs to involve. A little bit about where I come from first. The National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations is a national trade association for the commercial catching sector in England and Wales, few scattered members in Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Our membership broadly mirrors the national fleet. So although we have people fishing right around the coast of the UK and out into distant waters in every fishery, with every gear type from every size of boat, my smallest member is 4 metres long, my biggest is 120. Nevertheless, mirroring the national fleet, most of our member boats are smaller inshore vessels. About 70% are under 12 metres in length. But we are a broad church, we're a democratic organisation that works by consensus. Everyone agrees or we don't act collectively. And that's been quite powerful in keeping us together as a voice within the industry for nearly 50 years. There we are. So this is my basic message. If we don't plan, we will predictably get things wrong. Some of my members from the Southwest. Fishing matters in all sorts of ways. We've heard a lot earlier today about fishing and identity and community, and this is an absolutely central part of what the sea is all about to people who catch fish for a living. It has a value beyond the pounds and pence value of fish landed. Fish landed into the UK are sold for a value of about £1.1 billion every year. That value does not reflect why fishing is important. The communities where fishing happens are on the edge, literally on the edge in so many respects. They are distant from the centres of power. They are distant from the centres of the discussions around what national priorities should be, what a national economy should look like. They're hard to reach in many ways. They're traditional sector, traditional industry, traditional communities. I have members who have fished, whose families have fished from the same port for 8 generations, in a boat with the same name for the last 5. Well managed. Fishing provides sustainable income, sustainable food. It is free range, it is low carbon. It brings value to local economies far beyond that first sale value of seafood. It employs people driving forklift trucks, selling rope, making nets, working in local restaurants. Once upon a time, fishing and transport were what we used the sea for. There wasn't really anything else. And that time has now passed. We dig up aggregates, we build power stations to harness the wind, we run telecoms cables. We play there. We conserve areas for their own intrinsic value. Some of those uses pass through the sea, like fishers do, like transportation does. Some of them occupy space more or less permanently, and that's a new challenge. The seascape is not what it was those 8 generations and more ago. And more, I should add. I live in just outside Scarborough. There are tax records. Always tax, isn't it, that survives? Tax records in the town hall there, listing the rate to be paid by fishermen landing their catch in Scarborough Harbour for sale on the market from 1088. So we've been at this a while. If we manage it right, we'll be at it a while longer. We hear a lot about spatial squeeze, about all the other things that now happen in the sea. And the difficulty with this is the people who make decisions about it keep assuming that you can displace fishing to somewhere else, and it will just go somewhere else, and it will do what it does somewhere else. And it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. There isn't something to catch. Something I like saying, if we've been at this for 1,000 years, if there was something to catch somewhere else, someone would be catching it by now. It's not as simple as just move it aside and keep it. It doesn't work that way. You can't indefinitely displace fishing. And by assuming we can and assuming it will be fine, we are accidentally, unintentionally squeezing those traditional communities out of their own livelihoods without ever meaning to. In a fit of absent-mindedness, we risk wiping out a hugely important part of coastal communities that nobody is really engaging with what we replace it with, if indeed we should. And why should we? Why should we decide that that way of life isn't valid anymore for those people? Why are they not having more of a say in that? Not by any malice, just because nobody thinks it needs to be done. And it's not just the room to work. Actually, there are a lot of other constraints on this guy going to sea and making his living. Natural England has the power to regulate fisheries in small areas, maybe in a particular river mouth. IFCAs regulate their district in the inshore. The MMO regulates the offshore. DEFRA comes up with policies like fisheries management plans in consultation with fishers, with scientists and others, that regulate fisheries nationally. We have international agreements with the EU, with Norway, with the Faroes, with Iceland that determine what we can catch and where more broadly. The Department for Transport determines what makes a boat safe to go to sea. The Home Office decides who can come here to work and under what conditions. The Education Department decides who gets access to fishing. We have policy that requires people to be in education up to 18. There is no qualification for becoming a fisherman between 16 and 18. So we've lost a vast workforce since that rule came into play. And frankly, all of that's fine. Our industry and what we do does need to be regulated. Vessels do need to be safe. People do need to work in decent conditions. All of that is fine. The difficulty is not that this is a really hard, impossible problem to solve. The difficulty is that our attempts to solve it are disorganized. They're piecemeal. And that will predictably lead to failure. If we don't have clarity about what we are trying to do with fishing, what we intend for it, for its place in the nation, in UK PLC and in coastal communities, we will always find fishing being sidelined in favour of other sectors. I lose count of the number of times I've been told by a minister or other politician that can't be a priority because we have an offshore energy strategy which takes priority. We can't respect those fishing grounds there because we have a conservation strategy and that takes priority. Areas where there is a better articulated vision for what those sectors do for the nation inevitably win out for a sector whose consideration is more scattered. We will never successfully balance fishing and other sectors by tinkering with it, by looking at particular issues in isolation. I am really enthused by the use of the word balance in the title of this session. I was at an event in the Commons last week where the Crown Estate launched its environment strategy. And Baroness Hayward and Secretary of State for the Environment, Steve Reed, stood up and gave speeches where they talked about balancing and trade-offs. And I found that incredibly refreshing. We need to stop pretending that everything in the sea will co-locate and coexist. It won't. We have to engage with the issue, take some difficult decisions about what will have priority where. Then our decision makers need to own those decisions, allowing us all to have our say in it, and move forward in that sense. But if we keep pretending that there will be coexistence everywhere, if we keep pretending everyone can have everything everywhere, we will never make progress towards a future of the sea in 2030 or any other year. We need to treat fishing as an industry and have an industrial strategy for it. If we break it down into these incredibly kind of reductive ideas that we get, we treat fishing as a heritage pursuit. We treat fishing as a conservation problem. It isn't. It's an industry that carries heritage with it, that, if not well managed, causes issues for conservation, but so do most industries. Fundamentally, it provides jobs and economic growth and community and continuity. And we need to treat it as its own entity. So what should we involve in that? And I just want to throw some ideas out, really, because this is a call for action across government. We tend to interact with DEFRA and expect them to manage fishing, but that misses so many points. We need to think about core fishing grounds, where we can fish. We need to develop harvest plans based on scientific evidence that will be sustainable in the long term. We need to think about the safety and welfare of the people who catch fish. Fishermen deserve a decent recompense for their labor and to work in safe conditions and have that respected. We're a price taker as an industry, and we have to compete against imported products from countries that do not have welfare standards either for their catch or for their fishermen. We need to promote a modernized fleet and support the modernization of vessels, which adds to safety. We need some support for job creation in our sector like so many other industries have, and the training of domestic crew. As I pointed out, we lose so many people because they can't train when they're young. We need to strengthen domestic supply chains. We heard from government about public procurement of food, focusing more on UK production. They didn't mention fish. And we need to look at developing new domestic and export marketing opportunities. We need support to make fishing a core part of coastal communities, and that's a cross-governmental strategic response that we need. Thank you very much indeed. That's me.